The Great Sunset Acres Rebellion. Chapter 1. The Soup Incident. I've been called a lot of things in my 75 years on this earth. Troublemaker. Rabble-rouser. That woman with the megaphone. But, terrorist. As our nursing home director Gerald Pemberton so dramatically put it last Tuesday. Seemed a bit much. All I did was organize a peaceful sit-in. Well, sit-in might be generous. More like a sit-down because we're already sitting protest. We're in a nursing home, after all. Where else would we be? It started with the soup. Sunset Acres Retirement Community. And isn't that name just drip with false advertising? Had been serving the same watery chicken noodle soup every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 8 months straight. 8 months. I'd endured protests in the rain, tear gas at rallies, and once got locked in a bathroom at the Capitol building for 6 hours. But nothing prepared me for the soul-crushing monotony of that soup. It tastes like sadness, my friend Ethel announced one Wednesday, pushing her bowl away with such force it nearly slid off her tray. If disappointment were a liquid. Ethel Rothstein, 82, former Broadway costume designer, current fashion icon of the 4th floor, was not wrong. The soup tasted like someone had whispered the word, chicken, over a pot of hot water and called it a day. You know what we need? I said, looking around our table. Besides Ethel, there was Harold. World War II vet who could fix anything with duct tape and stubbornness. And Margaret, a retired librarian who'd memorized more regulations than Gerald Pemberton had excuses. Better soup? Harold suggested. A revolution, I said. Margaret adjusted her glasses and smiled. It was the kind of smile that had once terrorized overdue book borrowers. I like the way you think, Dorothy. Chapter 2. Recruiting the Resistance. Building a movement at 75 is considerably different than it was at 25. For one thing, recruitment happens a lot slower when everyone needs a nap by 2 o'clock. For another, our rallying cry had to be yelled louder, because half our potential members had hearing aids set to the wrong frequency. But I've learned something over decades of activism. Never underestimate the fury of people with nothing left to lose and plenty of time to be annoyed. Our first official meeting happened in the activities room on a Thursday, under the guise of a book club. Gerald got suspicious whenever more than 3 residents gathered without playing bingo. So subterfuge was necessary. 17 people showed up. 17. I'd been hoping for maybe 8. Thank you all for coming, I began, standing at the front of the room with a poster board I'd convinced Harold to build. On it, I'd written in large letters, demands for dignity. Speak up, dear, called out Bernard from the back. Bernard was 91 and had attended Woodstock, though he couldn't remember most of it, which was probably for the best. I said thank you for coming, I bellowed. No need to shout, Bernard replied, offended. This was going to be interesting. Friends, I continued at a moderate volume. We are here because Sunset Acres has failed us. The soup is terrible. The heat barely works. The television in the common room has been broken for 3 weeks. And they keep saying they'll fix it soon. How many of us are tired of soon? Hands shot up. Well, hand rose slowly, accounting for arthritis and various joint problems. But the sentiment was there. I haven't had a hot shower in a week, complained Rita, who'd been a union organizer in the 70s. The water's lukewarm at best. The elevator's been broken twice this month, added Frank, whose walker made stairs a non-option. They cancelled the gardening program, said sweet Louise, who'd never protested anything in her life but loved her roses fiercely. The complaints flowed like better soup than we'd been getting. I wrote them all down, my handwriting shaky but determined. So here's what I propose, I said once everyone had vented. We form a committee. We document every problem. We present our demands to management. And if they don't listen, which they won't, we escalate. Escalate how? Ethel asked, though her eyes were twinkling. She knew exactly where I was going with this. Civil disobedience. Nonviolent resistance. We make ourselves impossible to ignore. Margaret raised her hand. I move that we call ourselves the Sunset Acres Action Committee. I second. Harold shouted. All in favor? I asked. Aye, came the chorus. Loud enough that I'm pretty sure they heard it in the nursing station. Gerald Pemberton's comfortable little fiefdom was about to get very uncomfortable. Chapter 3. The First Strike. Our first official action was simple but effective. Operation Dining Room. At precisely 6 p.m. on a Monday, prime dinner time, all 17 members of our committee entered the dining room, collected our trays of soup, chicken noodle, naturally. And instead of sitting at our usual scattered tables, we all sat together at the 3 center tables. Then we didn't eat. Just sat there, spoons in hand, staring at our bowls in silent solidarity. The effect was immediate and magnificent. Is something wrong with the food? Asked Brenda, one of the kitchen staff, nervously. Yes. I replied simply. It's fine. Brenda insisted, though her voice wavered. It's really not, Ethel said, poking at her soup with a spoon. I've seen more substance in dishwater. Other residents who weren't part of our group started noticing. Whispers spread through the dining room like wildfire in a tinderbox. Why aren't they eating? Is the soup poisoned? Should we not eat the soup? Within 15 minutes, half the dining room had stopped eating in solidarity, whether they understood why or not. The power of peer pressure doesn't diminish with age. It just moves slower and needs reading glasses. Gerald Pemberton arrived shortly after. His round face flushed and his comb-over slightly askew. Always a sign he'd rushed over from something important like his daily YouTube browsing session. Ms. Chen, he said, using my last name like a schoolteacher about to deliver a detention. What is the meaning of this? I stood slowly. My knees don't love quick movements anymore. And held up a piece of paper. Margaret had typed it up on her iPad, properly formatted with bullet points and everything. Mr. Pemberton, this is a list of grievances from the residents of Sunset Acres. We demand better quality food, functioning facilities, and basic respect for our dignity as paying residents. He barely glanced at it. This is not the appropriate way to lodge complaints. We have a suggestion box, which you empty once a month into the trash. Margaret interrupted. I've watched you. Gerald's face went from flushed to crimson. I don't. We take all suggestions seriously. Then take these seriously, I said, pushing the paper toward him. We'll be here every meal until you do. You can't hold the dining room hostage. We're not holding anything hostage, Harold said calmly. We're just sitting here. Not illegal to sit, is it? And not eating, added Ethel. Also not illegal. Unhealthy, maybe, but we're old. Everything's unhealthy at this point. Bernard raised his spoon dramatically. We shall overcome. That's the wrong protest song, Bernard, I whispered. Is it? I thought it worked for everything. Gerald snatched the list from my hands, his jaw tight enough to crack walnuts. I will review these demands. But you cannot disrupt meals like this. Other residents need to eat. Then maybe serve them something worth eating, Rita suggested sweetly. He spun on his heel and marched out, but not before shooting me a look that said this wasn't over. It wasn't. We'd only just begun. Chapter 4. The sit-in escalates. By Wednesday, word had spread throughout Sunset Acres. Our little protest squad had grown to 25 members. By Friday, we had 38. Apparently, bad soup was a universal experience that crossed all social boundaries within the nursing home. Gerald tried to ignore us at first. We'd arrive for meals, sit at our designated protest tables, and politely refuse to eat. Other residents started joining us, not out of organized rebellion but simple solidarity. Or maybe they just didn't like the soup either. On the fourth day of our protest, Gerald tried a new tactic. He changed the menu. Ah! Ethel exclaimed when the kitchen staff brought out the dinner trays. Beef stew. We all examined our bowls with the scrutiny of food critics at a Michelin-starred restaurant. The stew was beige. Aggressively beige. The color of surrender, if surrender were edible. Harold poked at a chunk of something. Is this meat or potato? Yes, Margaret said, which somehow made perfect sense. I stood up. Around the dining room, conversations quieted. Mr. Pemberton, I called out. He'd been lurking near the door, probably hoping his culinary olive branch would end this. Thank you for changing the menu. However, this addresses only one item on our list. What about the broken elevator? The cold water? The cancelled programs? These things take time, Ms. Chen. We can't fix everything overnight. You've had 8 months to fix the soup situation and did nothing, I countered. Forgive us if we don't trust your timeline. I'm doing my best. Then your best isn't good enough, Rita said, standing beside me. Then Louise stood. Then Harold. Then, one by one, all 38 members of our growing protest squad rose from their seats. We hadn't planned it. It just happened. This beautiful moment of collective resistance. Sit down, Gerald ordered. All of you, sit down right now. No, I said simply. I'll call the authorities. And tell them what? Margaret asked, her librarian voice cutting through his bluster like a knife through terrible beef stew. That elderly residents are standing during dinner? They'll laugh you off the phone. Gerald stormed out, and we all sat back down, grinning at each other like kids who'd just gotten away with something. Did you see his face? Ethel whispered gleefully. I thought his head might actually explode. Bernard added. We still didn't eat the stew. But the rebellion? That tasted delicious. Chapter 5. The media arrives. I shouldn't have been surprised when Ethel's grandson showed up on Tuesday afternoon with a video camera. Danny was a freelance journalist, always looking for interesting stories. And apparently, elderly activists take on nursing home, qualified. Grandma says you're leading a revolution, Danny said, setting up his camera in the activities room where we'd gathered for another book club meeting. Your grandmother exaggerates, I said, though I was secretly pleased. I do not. Ethel protested. Dorothy, tell him about the Great Soup Strike. What followed was a delightfully chaotic interview where 38 seniors talked over each other, sharing grievances, complaints, and, most entertainingly, their proposed solutions. We should withhold payment, suggested Frank. We should chain ourselves to the front desk, offered Rita, clearly missing her union organizer days. We should make signs and march, Louise said, then paused. Well, some of us could march. Others could roll. In wheelchairs. It would still count. Danny's camera captured it all. Our passion, our frustration, and yes, our humor. Because if we couldn't laugh at the absurdity of fighting for basic dignity in a place that charged us $3,000 a month, what could we laugh at? The segment aired that Friday on the local news. I watched it in the common room with half the nursing home gathered around the finally fixed television. Funny how quickly things got repaired once media attention arrived. Trouble at Sunset Acres, the news anchor announced, where a group of elderly residents has launched a protest movement demanding better living conditions. There I was, on screen, my white hair slightly wild, my voice strong despite my age. We are not asking for luxury. We are asking for dignity. We paid for a certain quality of life, and we intend to get it. Cut to Gerald Pemberton, looking cornered and uncomfortable. We value all our residents and are working diligently to address their concerns. Cut to Harold, grinning mischievously. He's working diligently on covering his butt, is what he's doing. The newscast ended with Danny's voiceover. This reporter has seen many protests in his career, but never one quite so determined. Or quite so adorable. Adorable? I sputtered. Adorable? He means it affectionately, Ethel assured me. I've been called many things, but adorable was not on my bingo card. We should make that our slogan, Bernard suggested. The adorable rebellion. Absolutely not. But the damage was done. By the next morning, we were viral. Or as viral as a nursing home protest could be, which apparently was more than I'd anticipated. Chapter 6. The support pours in. The phone calls started at 8 a.m. Saturday. Then the emails. Then the visitors. First came the local advocacy group for elder rights, offering legal support. Then a nonprofit that investigated nursing home conditions. Then, most surprising of all, a delegation of college students from the nearby university's social work program, asking if they could help. We're doing a unit on community organizing, explained their leader, a earnest young woman named Jessica with bright pink hair. Our professor said your movement is a perfect case study. Case study? I muttered to Ethel. I'm a case study now. Better than a case of the Mondays, Ethel replied. That doesn't even make sense. None of this makes sense, Dorothy. That's why it's working. She had a point. By Monday, we had support we'd never anticipated. The local bakery donated pastries for our meetings. A restaurant offered to consult on the menu. Most importantly, the media attention had brought scrutiny Gerald Pemberton desperately didn't want. The regional health department announced a surprise inspection. This is your fault. Gerald hissed at me in the hallway outside the dining room, where inspectors were currently photographing the kitchen facilities. My fault? I replied innocently. I didn't call them. The concerned public did. You're destroying this facility's reputation. You destroyed it yourself with negligence. We're just making sure everyone knows about it. His face did that purple thing again. I was starting to worry about his blood pressure, which was ironic considering he clearly wasn't worried about ours. The inspection lasted 3 days. During that time, miracles occurred. The elevator was fixed permanently. The hot water returned. And the soup, blessed miracle, actually had vegetables you could identify. We did this, Margaret said, ladling herself a bowl of the new minestrone. We actually did this. We're not done yet, I reminded her, though I was smiling. The inspection report won't be released for a week. We need to maintain pressure. What do you suggest? Asked Harold. I pulled out a piece of paper with our next action plan. I suggest we learn from the best. Back in the 60s, we had teach-ins. I think it's time for a roll-in. A what? Several people asked simultaneously. You'll see. Chapter 7. The Great Roll-In. Our roll-in took place the following Wednesday at 2 p.m. Right when Gerald typically gave tours to prospective residents and their families. 25 of us gathered in the main lobby. 15 in wheelchairs. Both necessary and borrowed. 10 with walkers. All of us wearing matching t-shirts that Ethel's grandson had helped us make overnight. The shirts read, Sunset Acres where dignity goes to die. Slowly, without proper heating. It was Margaret's idea. I thought it might be a bit much, but the group voted unanimously in favor. Right on schedule, Gerald emerged from his office with a well-dressed couple in their 50s and an elderly woman who was clearly their mother. His face when he saw us was worth every penny we'd pulled together for those t-shirts. Welcome to Sunset Acres, I called out cheerfully. We're the Resident Action Committee. Can we tell you about life here? Ms. Chen, Gerald said through clenched teeth. I'm conducting a tour. Oh, don't let us stop you. Ethel interrupted. We'll just roll along and provide supplementary information. And that's exactly what we did. Gerald. As you can see, we have a beautiful main lobby with plenty of natural light. When the windows aren't too dirty to see through. Took us filing complaints for 3 months to get them cleaned. Gerald. Our dining room serves 3 nutritious meals a day. Harold. Define nutritious. Actually, define meal while you're at it. Gerald. We offer a variety of activities and programs. Margaret. They canceled the gardening program, the art classes, and the book club to save money. This forced us to hold secret meetings disguised as book clubs, which was actually kind of fun. The prospective residents' family looked increasingly uncomfortable. The elderly woman, however, looked delighted. "I like them," she announced, pointing at our group. "They've got spirit." "Mother," her son began. "This is highly irregular," Gerald sputtered. "What's irregular?" I said, wheeling myself to face the family directly. "Is charging premium prices for substandard care. What's irregular is ignoring residents' complaints for months. What's irregular is treating elderly people like we're too senile to notice when we're being cheated." "You're not being cheated," Gerald protested weakly. "Then why did the health inspector find 12 violations last week?" Margaret asked sweetly. "I have the preliminary report if you'd like to see it." She didn't, actually, but Gerald didn't know that. The family made their excuses and left. 2 more tours that day ended the same way. By Thursday, Gerald had cancelled all scheduled tours indefinitely. "You're sabotaging us," he yelled during an emergency meeting he'd called with our committee. "We're providing transparency," I corrected. "Don't you believe in informed consent?" "You're driving away new residents. Then maybe improve the facility so we have something good to say." Rita leaned forward. "Gerald, we're not trying to destroy Sunset Acres. We're trying to save it. Make it the place it claims to be in your brochure." For a moment, just a moment, something shifted in Gerald's expression. He looked tired. Actually tired, not just annoyed. "I don't have the budget," he said quietly. "Corporate sets the spending limits. I've been asking for more funding for repairs and improvements for 2 years." Ethel and I exchanged glances. "Then maybe," I said slowly, "we're protesting the wrong person." Chapter 8. Escalation. Within 48 hours, we'd done our research. Margaret had discovered that Sunset Acres was owned by Comfort Living Corporation, a company that operated 73 nursing homes across 15 states. A company that had reported record profits last year while simultaneously cutting facility budgets. "We need to go bigger," I announced at our next meeting, which now included 35 regular members and about 20 occasional supporters. "How much bigger?" asked Bernard. "Corporate headquarters bigger." The room went quiet. "Dorothy," Ethel said carefully, "that's in Chicago. That's a 5-hour drive. Then we better pack snacks." What followed was the most complicated logistical operation I'd undertaken since organizing the Women's March in '78. We needed transportation, which meant convincing several residents' families to drive us. We needed permission to leave the facility, which Gerald reluctantly granted after we threatened to leave anyway and cause a bigger scene. We needed to coordinate with other comfort living facilities. That last part was Rita's genius. Using social media. Specifically, her granddaughter's TikTok account. We reached out to residents at other comfort living nursing homes. Turns out, bad soup was universal. Within a week, we had contacts at 12 other facilities. All reporting similar issues. All frustrated with the same corporate indifference. "We're organizing a multi-facility protest," I told the reporter from the local news who'd been following our story. "Next Friday. Corporate headquarters. We're bringing the adorable rebellion to their doorstep." Danny, Ethel's grandson, had started calling us that officially now. The adorable rebellion. I'd stopped fighting it. If it helped our cause, I'd accept being called adorable. The story went national 3 days before our planned protest. Nursing home residents organize multi-state protest. Read the headline in the Times. The adorable rebellion demands change. My phone, which I'd mostly used for calling my daughter and playing solitaire, exploded with messages. Interview requests. Support from advocacy groups. Even a call from a senator's office asking for details about our complaints. We're not adorable, I told the senator's aide. We're just old and mad, which apparently people find cute. Whatever works, she replied. We're introducing legislation next month about nursing home standards. Your timing is perfect. Timing. Luck. Stubbornness. Whatever it was, we were riding the wave. Chapter 9. Road Trip. The morning of the protest, 17 of us piled into 4 cars. The journey would take 5 hours, which was approximately 16 bathroom breaks and old person time, but we were undeterred. I packed snacks, Louise announced, distributing bags of homemade cookies. I brought my protest signs from the 60s, Bernard said, unfurling a poster that read, Make love not war. Wrong protest, Bernard. Are you sure? Feels relevant. Harold had made new signs. Elderly not invisible. Profits over patients equal shame. And my personal favorite. Old enough to know better, still young enough to fight. We caravanned to Chicago, our little fleet of sedans and 1 minivan, making numerous stops and driving everyone's adult children crazy with worried phone calls. Mom, are you sure about this? My daughter Jenny asked when I called from a rest stop near Indianapolis. Absolutely not, I replied. But I'm doing it anyway. That's what I was afraid of. Honey, I'm 75. If not now, when? She sighed, the sound of someone accepting their mother's chaos. Just be safe, okay? And text me every hour. I don't know how to text. Then call every hour. I promised I would, though I'd probably forget at least twice. We arrived at Comfort Living Corporation's headquarters at 11 a.m., exactly as planned. But we weren't alone. Apparently, residents from 6 other facilities had made the trip. In total, nearly 80 elderly protesters gathered in front of the sleek glass building. Many in wheelchairs. All armed with signs and determination. The media was already there. News vans from at least 5 stations lined the street. Ready? Ethel asked, squeezing my hand. Let's give them hell, I replied. We rolled forward. Chapter 10. Victory. Sort of. The protest lasted 4 hours. We chanted. Slowly, because lungs aren't what they used to be. We held signs. Until arms got tired, then we took turns. We gave interviews. So many interviews that I started feeling like a celebrity, which was ridiculous. The best moment came when Executive Vice President, I never caught his name, came outside to address us. Ladies and gentlemen, he began with forced politeness. We appreciate your concerns, but this is not the appropriate venue. Where is the appropriate venue? Interrupted a woman from the Milwaukee facility. The suggestion box that gets emptied in the trash? Corporate complaints can be filed through proper channels. We've been filing through proper channels. Rita shouted. For months. And nothing changed until we made noise. The crowd. And I use that term loosely, since we moved at about half the speed of a regular crowd. Erupted in agreement. The executive tried to regain control. We will review your complaints and respond through appropriate administrative. No. I said, wheeling myself to the front. That's not how this works anymore. You will meet with representatives from each facility within 2 weeks. You will commit to facility improvements with specific timelines. And you will establish an independent resident council at each location with real authority to report issues. Ms. Chen, I understand you're upset, but you can't dictate terms. Watch us. I pulled out my phone. Well, Margaret pulled out her phone and handed it to me. And I showed him the petition we'd launched online. 80,000 signatures in 3 days, I said. Demanding better oversight of corporate-owned nursing homes. Senator Williams's office is already working on legislation. The last thing you want is to be the case study for why that legislation is needed. His expression shifted. He'd been prepared to dismiss us as cute old people making noise. He hadn't been prepared for organized, media-savvy, politically connected cute old people making noise. I need to consult with my team, he said finally. You have 20 minutes, I replied. Then we call the news crews back over and explain how Comfort Living Corporation won't even talk to its own residents. He practically ran back inside. Ethel leaned over. Did we just win? Maybe? I said. Part of it, anyway. 19 minutes later, he returned with a written commitment. Facility assessments within 30 days, improvement plans within 60, and quarterly meetings with resident councils. It wasn't everything we wanted. But it was something. We'll be watching, I told him as we packed up our signs. We know how to organize now. And we've got nothing but time. That was probably the part that scared corporate the most. A bunch of elderly people with organizational skills and unlimited free time. Chapter 11. Coming home. The drive back to Sunset Acres was triumphant. Despite the fact that we had to stop 6 times for bathroom breaks, and once because Bernard thought he saw an IHOP and wanted pancakes. We did it, Louise kept saying, clutching her rolled-up poster. We actually did it. We did something, I corrected. The real work starts now. Making sure they follow through. But I was proud. So incredibly proud of what we'd accomplished. When we pulled into the Sunset Acres parking lot at 8 p.m., exhausted and exhilarated, we found a surprise waiting. Residents lined the entrance, applauding. Someone had made a banner. Welcome home, rebels. Even Gerald was there, and he was smiling? Sort of? Ms. Chen, he said as I carefully exited the car. The corporate office called. We're getting budget approval for renovations. About time. And they want to use Sunset Acres as a pilot for the new resident council program. We'll believe it when we see it. I know, he said quietly. I know I haven't. I should have fought harder for you all. I got comfortable. Complacent. I studied his face. He looked sincere. Maybe even a little ashamed. Then don't let it happen again, I said. We're not going anywhere, and we're certainly not shutting up. He actually laughed. I'm beginning to understand that. That night, we gathered in the dining room for a late dinner. The kitchen staff had made a special meal. Not gourmet, but decent. Real vegetables in the soup. Meat you could identify. Dessert that wasn't from a package. To the adorable rebellion, Ethel said, raising her glass of cranberry juice. To getting old disgracefully, Harold added. To proving that being elderly doesn't mean being powerless, Margaret said. I looked around at my fellow rebels. These wonderful, stubborn, impossible people who'd become more than friends. We'd become a movement. To second acts, I said. And to never being too old to raise hell. We clinked our glasses. Carefully, because spills are harder to clean up than they used to be. And drank to our victory. Epilogue. 3 months later. The changes came slowly, but they came. The elevator got a complete overhaul. The hot water was fixed permanently. The menu improved dramatically after the restaurant consultant finished training the kitchen staff. The gardening program returned, along with 3 new activity options. Most importantly, the resident council. Officially sanctioned, with Margaret as president. Now met monthly with management. Real meetings, with minutes and action items and actual responses to concerns. Other comfort living facilities started their own councils. Some organized their own mini-rebellions. The story of our protest became something of a legend in the elder care world. I still led occasional protests. Gerald groaned every time he saw me with a poster board. But mostly we'd moved into a new phase. Cooperation instead of confrontation. We'd proven we couldn't be ignored, which gave us a seat at the table. You know, Ethel said one afternoon as we sat in the newly renovated sunroom, I never thought I'd become an activist at 82. I never thought I'd still be one at 75, I replied. But here we are. The adorable rebellion rides again? Hopefully we won't have to. But if we do. I grinned. At least we know how. Bernard wheeled past, wearing a t-shirt that read, Elderly and Dangerous. Where did you get that? I called after him. Ethel's grandson sells them online now. All proceeds go to elder advocacy groups. Of course he did. I settled back in my chair, watching the afternoon sun stream through windows that were actually clean. Feeling the warm air from a heating system that actually worked. And smiled. Being 75 wasn't what I'd expected. But then again, I'd spent most of my life doing unexpected things. Why stop now?